Hi, I'm Ryan J. Wells. Today we're diving into a question that many of us face at some point in our lives. How do you emotionally detach and still succeed? Life can often feel like a balancing act. On one hand, we're told that no one can truly thrive alone, that it takes connection and collaboration to succeed. On the other hand, there are moments when you're pushed away, ostracized, or left standing alone. So, how do you keep going? How do you stay emotionally grounded while still reaching for success when the world around you seems to isolate you? Before we dive in, if you find value in this message, I invite you to subscribe and join this community where we strive to grow together. Only 15% of viewers are subscribed, so if this resonates with you, subscribing ensures you won't miss content designed to elevate your life. Now let's unpack this delicate balance between emotional detachment and success and explore how you can thrive, whether you're surrounded by support or standing on your own. Section 1. The thin line between connection and detachment. The comment that inspired this video spoke about a line thinner than a razor's edge when it comes to emotional detachment. And that's such a powerful image because it captures the reality so many of us face. On one side of that line is the need for connection, something deeply human. We're wired to seek out relationships, community, and validation from those around us. There's a natural desire to be part of something, to feel that we belong. This idea that no man is an island is echoed throughout history, in philosophy, psychology, and even spirituality. But then there's the other side of that line, the reality that life doesn't always offer us the connection we seek. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we find ourselves ostracized, isolated, or disconnected. This isolation could come from friends, family, colleagues, or even society as a whole. It might be caused by circumstances outside of your control, a falling out, a change in social dynamics, or simply life pulling people in different directions. And what makes it so painful is that it often happens without warning, leaving you standing alone, wondering how to move forward. What's tricky here is that while connection is important, too much emotional investment in external relationships can leave us vulnerable. The more we depend on others to validate our worth or fulfill our emotional needs, the more we risk losing our balance when those connections falter. And that's why this razor-thin line between connection and detachment is so difficult to navigate. How do we stay connected without becoming overly dependent? How do we protect ourselves emotionally without closing ourselves off from the world? It's important to recognize that emotional detachment doesn't mean becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It's about understanding that your emotional well-being can't be fully reliant on others. Yes, we need people, and we thrive through meaningful relationships, but there's a balance to be struck, a way to remain open to others while protecting your inner peace. The tension between connection and detachment is especially pronounced in moments of isolation. Whether you've been excluded from a group or distanced from someone important to you, that feeling of being pushed away can trigger a spiral of self-doubt. You start questioning, is it something I did? Is there something wrong with me? And the more you dwell on it, the more emotionally dependent you become on what others think of you. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that your worth is tied to how others treat you. But here's the thing. Your value doesn't diminish just because someone else fails to see it. In fact, some of the most profound growth happens during periods of isolation. When the world pulls away, it's an opportunity to reconnect with yourself, to build inner strength, and to redefine what success and happiness mean to you. Emotional detachment, when done healthily, allows you to stand firm, to remain steady even when the external world becomes chaotic or unpredictable. This is where the true power of emotional detachment lies. It's not about abandoning your desire for connection. It's about balancing that desire with a strong sense of self. It's about knowing that your emotional health doesn't have to hinge on the approval or validation of others. Emotional detachment gives you the space to breathe, to regain perspective, and to approach life's challenges with a calm, centered mindset. That's why this razor-thin line is so crucial. By mastering the art of detachment, you give yourself the freedom to engage with the world without being consumed by it. You can connect deeply with others without letting their opinions or actions dictate your emotional state. And when isolation does happen, because it inevitably will, you're better equipped to handle it. You know that you can still thrive, still succeed, even when others step out of your life. So, how do we walk this razor-thin line? It starts with understanding that emotional detachment isn't an either-or situation. It's not about choosing between connection or isolation. It's about learning how to navigate the in-between space where you can maintain relationships without losing your inner balance. It's about knowing that, while we may not be islands, we are still whole on our own. Section 2. The role of emotional detachment. Now that we've explored the razor-thin line between connection and detachment, let's dive into the role emotional detachment plays in our personal growth and success. What exactly is emotional detachment, and how does it help us thrive, especially when we feel isolated or disconnected from others? First, it's important to clarify that emotional detachment isn't about shutting down your feelings or avoiding relationships. It's not about becoming numb to life's challenges. Rather, it's about creating a healthy distance between your emotions and the external events around you, especially when those events are beyond your control. One of the most empowering lessons I've learned comes from Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us to focus on what we can control: our thoughts, our attitudes, our responses. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, famously said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of emotional detachment. It's about recognizing that, while you can't always control what happens to you, you can absolutely control how you respond. When you emotionally detach in a healthy way, you're not disconnecting from the world. You're simply refusing to let external circumstances control your internal state. You're taking ownership of your emotions and deciding how much power you give to situations or people. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-caring, to the point where your emotional well-being is dictated by the actions or opinions of others. Here's an important distinction. Emotional detachment isn't apathy. Apathy implies a lack of interest or concern, while detachment is about remaining engaged, but without being consumed by the emotional turbulence that often comes with life's ups and downs. In fact, detachment gives you the clarity and presence of mind to engage with life even more effectively because you're not overwhelmed by emotion in moments of stress or conflict. Think about it this way. When we're too emotionally involved in a situation, whether it's a relationship, a work challenge, or even just daily stress, we tend to react impulsively. We let our emotions dictate our actions. This can lead to burnout, frustration, and even regret. But when you practice emotional detachment, you create a space between the event and your reaction. In that space, you gain perspective. You can respond thoughtfully, with intention, rather than reacting from a place of heightened emotion. Let's take an example. Imagine you're at work, and a colleague makes a critical comment about your performance. Without emotional detachment, your instinct might be to take it personally, to feel hurt or angry. You might dwell on that comment, replaying it over and over in your mind, letting it affect your self-esteem and your overall mood. But with emotional detachment, you recognize that their comment is just an opinion. You assess whether there's anything constructive in it, but you don't let it define your worth or your sense of success. You acknowledge the comment, and then you move on, without internalizing it. This ability to detach from external events is what empowers you to stay grounded. It's what allows you to keep moving forward, even when things around you are unstable or uncertain. And in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, emotional detachment becomes a kind of superpower. It's a way to protect your peace, to remain resilient in the face of adversity. There's a beautiful concept in Buddhism called equanimity, which refers to a calm, balanced state of mind that remains unaffected by the highs and lows of life. Emotional detachment is closely tied to this idea. It's about maintaining your inner calm, your sense of balance, even when life throws challenges your way. And this doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without letting external situations consume you. So, why is emotional detachment so important for success? Because success, whether personal, professional, or emotional, is built on resilience. It's about staying focused and steady, even when the world around you is shaking. When you detach from the need for constant approval or from the fear of rejection, you free yourself to pursue your goals with clarity and determination. This brings us back to the question of isolation. When you feel disconnected from others, when relationships fall apart, or when you're pushed away, emotional detachment helps you realize that your success isn't dependent on those external factors. It's rooted in your own strength, your own ability to remain centered and grounded. This shift in perspective is incredibly empowering. Instead of feeling at the mercy of other people's opinions or actions, you realize that your emotional health and success are entirely within your control. You can still care about others, still engage in relationships, but without allowing their actions to dictate how you feel about yourself. And this is where the real growth happens, when you stop looking to others for validation and start finding strength within yourself. So, when life feels chaotic, when relationships falter, or when you find yourself standing alone, emotional detachment gives you the inner fortitude to keep going. It allows you to stay calm, to stay focused, and to stay connected to your purpose, no matter what's happening around you. Section 3. Redefining success. Now that we've explored emotional detachment and how it helps us navigate life's challenges, let's talk about something that ties directly into it: how we define success. Most of us have been conditioned to see success through external markers: a thriving career, strong relationships, social recognition, and financial stability. These things can certainly contribute to a sense of accomplishment, but what happens when those external sources of validation are no longer available? For many people, isolation or disconnection leads to a deep sense of failure. When we measure success by what we gain externally, losing those external factors can feel like losing a part of ourselves. But here's a critical truth that's often overlooked. True success doesn't start with what's happening outside of you. It starts within. Emotional detachment helps us understand this distinction. It allows us to shift from an external to an internal definition of success. When you focus on external achievements alone, you're constantly at the mercy of situations and people outside of your control. You might land a promotion at work, but what happens if you lose that job? You might have a great circle of friends, but what happens if those relationships change or fade? If your success is tied entirely to things beyond your control, then your sense of self-worth becomes incredibly fragile. But when you focus on internal success, the strength of your mindset, your emotional resilience, and your ability to stay grounded, you carry that success with you no matter what happens around you. Let's take a moment to consider what internal success looks like. It's the ability to remain calm under pressure. It's the strength to keep moving forward when others doubt you, or when life takes an unexpected turn. It's the peace that comes from knowing that your worth isn't tied to your job title, your bank account, or your social status. As Lao Tzu said, "He who conquers others is strong. He who conquers himself is mighty." Emotional detachment plays a crucial role in cultivating this kind of inner success. When you're not tied to external validation, you give yourself the freedom to pursue your goals without the fear of failure, judgment, or rejection. You're no longer driven by the need to prove yourself to others or to meet society's expectations. Instead, you're guided by your own values and sense of purpose. This shift allows you to define success on your own terms, and this is where emotional detachment truly becomes a superpower. By removing the emotional weight of external pressures, you open yourself up to opportunities that you may have been too afraid to pursue otherwise. You're able to take risks, try new things, and move forward with a clear mind, unburdened by the fear of what others will think. It's a kind of freedom that leads to deeper, more meaningful achievements because they are aligned with who you are, not who you think you're supposed to be. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." Success isn't about avoiding failure or never facing rejection. It's about how you respond to those moments when things don't go your way. Emotional detachment allows you to stay focused on your journey, even when setbacks happen. It teaches you to value progress over perfection and resilience over instant results. You start to realize that the real victory is in showing up for yourself day after day, regardless of what's happening around you. This shift in perspective doesn't mean that external achievements aren't important, but when you prioritize internal success, you no longer rely on those external achievements to feel fulfilled. They become a bonus rather than the foundation of your happiness. And when external success does come, it's more likely to be sustainable because it's built on the strong foundation of self-worth and emotional resilience. As Epictetus wisely put it, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. When you define success internally, you're no longer chasing after things you don't really need. You start focusing on what truly matters: your growth, your peace of mind, and your ability to stay true to yourself. Emotional detachment helps you let go of the endless pursuit of validation from others and embrace the quiet, steady progress of personal growth. And in doing so, you discover a kind of success that no one can take away from you. Section 4. Staying connected without being dependent. At this point, you might be wondering, if emotional detachment is so important for success and resilience, does it mean that we should avoid connecting with others? Should we stop building relationships or engaging with the world? The answer is no. Emotional detachment doesn't mean cutting yourself off from people or experiences. It means finding a way to stay connected without becoming dependent. Human connection is essential. We're social creatures by nature. Relationships, friendships, and partnerships bring joy, support, and meaning to our lives. But emotional detachment teaches us that we can engage with these connections without letting them define us. In other words, you can love people, you can care about your work, and you can enjoy the tango of life without relying on them for your self-worth. This is where many people get confused. They think that in order to be emotionally detached, they need to stop caring, stop loving, or stop getting involved. But that's not the case. Emotional detachment simply means that your sense of inner peace and stability doesn't depend on the ups and downs of your relationships or career. It's the understanding that while relationships are important, they are not the source of your identity or emotional stability. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You can connect with others while keeping a healthy emotional boundary. This boundary is not a wall that blocks people out. It's more like a protective space that allows you to engage without losing yourself. When you establish this boundary, you give yourself permission to care deeply, but not at the expense of your emotional well-being. Imagine being in a relationship or a friendship where you genuinely care for the other person, but you also know that your happiness doesn't hinge entirely on their behavior or approval. You're able to love them, support them, and connect with them without feeling like their opinions or actions determine your worth. This is emotional detachment in practice. It allows you to be fully present in your connections without feeling controlled by them. This mindset is also incredibly powerful in professional settings. Think about a time when you faced criticism or rejection at work. If you were overly attached to the opinions of others, that feedback could have sent you spiraling into self-doubt. But with emotional detachment, you can separate constructive criticism from personal attacks. You take what's helpful, let go of the rest, and continue to move forward without internalizing every comment or critique. As Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." This is especially important when you're dealing with isolation or ostracism. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, people pull away. Relationships end, and social circles change. In these moments, emotional detachment helps you stay grounded in your own worth. It allows you to grieve the loss of those connections without falling into the trap of believing that their absence defines your value. It's also important to recognize that emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop investing in relationships. It means you invest wisely. You can still care, but you're no longer emotionally dependent on the outcome. This gives you the freedom to engage with people and experiences without fear of rejection, fear of failure, or fear of loss. Emotional detachment at its core is about finding balance. It's about engaging fully in life without letting your happiness depend on factors outside of your control. When you practice this kind of detachment, you can connect with others from a place of strength, not need. You can enjoy relationships without feeling like they are the only source of your emotional well-being. As Rumi beautifully said, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes in a different form." By practicing emotional detachment, you open yourself up to this truth. When relationships or opportunities end, it doesn't mean you failed. It simply means life is shifting, and something new is on the horizon. Detachment allows you to stay open to new possibilities without clinging to the past or being consumed by fear of loss. The beauty of emotional detachment is that it gives you the emotional freedom to love deeply, connect meaningfully, and engage fully with life, all while maintaining your own inner peace and stability. You can dance the tango of life with others, but you also have the ability to dance alone, knowing that your worth is not tied to anyone else's rhythm. Section 5. Practical Tips for Emotional Detachment. So, how can you begin practicing emotional detachment in your daily life while still pursuing success and maintaining relationships? Here are a few practical steps that you can start applying right now to help you build this emotional resilience. First, practice mindful awareness. The foundation of emotional detachment starts with awareness. Before you can detach from an emotional reaction, you need to be able to recognize when it's happening. This requires mindfulness, the ability to notice your emotions as they arise without getting swept up in them. For instance, when someone says something hurtful, or a situation at work becomes stressful, take a moment to pause. Notice the emotional response bubbling up inside you, whether it's frustration, anger, or sadness. By becoming aware of this emotional reaction in the moment, you create a space between the stimulus and your response. In that space, you have the power to choose how you'll react. Second, establish clear boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining emotional detachment. Healthy boundaries allow you to engage with others without absorbing their emotions or letting their behavior dictate how you feel. Think of boundaries as guidelines for how much emotional energy you're willing to invest in a particular relationship or situation. Setting these boundaries might mean stepping back from toxic relationships, limiting your exposure to negative influences, or simply deciding not to engage in arguments that drain your energy. When you have strong boundaries, you protect your inner peace, and it becomes easier to remain detached from the emotional chaos around you. Third, commit to regular self-reflection. Emotional detachment is not something that happens overnight. It's a practice that requires regular self-reflection. Take time to check in with yourself, whether through journaling, meditation, or quiet contemplation. Reflect on your emotional state. Are you feeling overwhelmed by external events? Are certain relationships draining you more than they should? Are you reacting to situations impulsively rather than thoughtfully? By reflecting on these questions regularly, you can identify where you might need to practice more detachment and recalibrate your approach to emotional balance. Fourth, focus on your purpose. One of the most powerful tools for emotional detachment is staying focused on your purpose. When you have a clear sense of what you're working towards in life, it's easier to stay grounded, even when external circumstances become turbulent. Your purpose becomes your anchor. Instead of being pulled in every direction by the emotions of others or the distractions of life, you stay centered, guided by your own goals and values. When you're committed to your purpose, the opinions or behaviors of others lose their power to derail you emotionally. You know what you're striving for, and that focus helps you stay detached from unnecessary emotional turmoil. Finally, practice letting go. The art of emotional detachment ultimately comes down to the practice of letting go. Letting go of the need for control, approval, or outcomes that are beyond your reach. This doesn't mean you stop caring or become passive. Rather, it means you release the expectation that everything should go a certain way, or that people should behave a certain way. Letting go allows you to engage with life's ups and downs without becoming consumed by them. It's an acknowledgement that some things are simply outside of your control, and that's okay. By practicing letting go, you free yourself from the emotional burden of constantly trying to manage situations or people, and you allow yourself to live with greater ease and inner peace. Bringing it all together. To sum it up, emotional detachment doesn't mean turning away from the world or disconnecting from the people in your life. It's about maintaining your emotional stability and peace while still engaging fully with life. By practicing mindful awareness, setting clear boundaries, reflecting regularly, focusing on your purpose, and learning to let go, you can cultivate emotional detachment in a way that supports your success and well-being. This kind of emotional resilience is what allows you to thrive, even when faced with isolation or the challenges of life. It's the ability to stay grounded, focused, and at peace, no matter what's happening around you. So, as you move forward, I encourage you to start implementing these practical tips in your daily life. Small, consistent changes in your approach to emotional detachment can lead to profound shifts in how you handle stress, relationships, and success. And remember, true success begins within. It's not about controlling the external world, it's about mastering your inner one. Thank you for watching, and if this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe and become a part of our growing community where we explore these tools and ideas for personal growth. Let's continue to elevate together.